All right, wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Hey, I want to start off with a couple of things here. Number one, I know I normally start with hot news and what you appreciate, but for the sake of time, there is a lot to cover, and I don't want to go over time today. I want to make sure this is a good, worthwhile, productive conversation with and for you guys. I'm going to jump right in. First things first, I want to start off talking about sales so far. Okay, you may have noticed I did not ask you to put your sales results on the board for this week. There's a very good reason for that. But I'm going to ask you guys, please pull out something you can take some notes with, whether it's your computer or a notebook or something. And I am going to ask you to jot a couple things down, and I'm going to ask you to share these with me. Okay, whether it's by text or by a phone call or by email. Don't care about that, but I do want you to take a few notes and then share with me. So first off, just a couple of thoughts for you guys. We've been talking ever since the very first Leadership Academy back in September about how this push is the only national push of the year and making sure that we step up. And for a lot of you guys, you were telling me that your goal for this one is to build a little momentum, right? I know last week I asked all of you guys for your demo commitment, what your sales target is. And I did share that, by the way, with Kate, so she knows your targets as well that you put together from last week. And I know that a couple of you are in different positions, right? There's some of you that are working full time because you're not in the school. I know there's a couple of you that are full-time students and you said, hey, I can do 4, 5, 6 appointments and get a couple sales on the board. And then a couple of you, we agreed like, hey, just sending out an email blast or a text message blast to your past existing customers would be it. So I know all of you are in a different spot, and just FYI, each one of you and me is on the same page with the exception of Brandon. We haven't talked about your sales yet, but we'll do that in our next laser call. But here's the questions I want you to ask yourself. Number one, have you done yet what you said you were going to do? All right, I know a couple of you guys booked events. I do want to give Kevin props. We were just debriefing his sales. He wasn't super thrilled with where he landed for the week. But to give him credit, he booked 17 appointments for the week. And I believe he's the in the top, I don't know if you're in the top 5 or not, but I think you're in the top 10 for Leadership Academy candidates in DC Metro so far for the push. Right, so even though he's not where he wants to be, I can definitely give him credit for taking massive action. Actually, if I can ask, how many days did you make phone calls this week?
Yeah, so I made phone calls every single day except I think it was Wednesday because I had something to do with my passport. So I did every day except for one day.
Okay. How many of those days were you making calls before 9 a.m.?
Every single day because I would wake up at 6 and then I would do calls from 8 to 10 for 2 hours on the treadmill.
Cool.
Except for one day.
So I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but Kevin, now keep in mind, he's not a college student. I realize some of you, your schedules just wouldn't allow for this, but Kevin made phone calls before 9 a.m. 6 days this week. And he called me every morning. We haven't been doing 10X in the office because I'm doing stuff in the mornings. But I think every single morning this week, he called me at 8 a.m. And if I was able to answer the phone, we did a quick workshop over the phone before he started making his calls. And on the days I wasn't able, he just left me a voicemail, said, hey, I'm checking in for the morning. I'm about to make a round of calls. And I think he would make calls for 30 to 45 minutes every single morning. And that's how he was able to book 17 appointments. For those of you that are college students with a full course load, but you're either playing a club sport or you're not actively in a sport, even if you were only working one day, you could do between 4 to 6 appointments in a day and still have plenty of time to go out with your friends and do all the things. So I know there's a couple of you that have told me like, oh, I'm so stressed and overwhelmed with school. And I think that's more of a time management thing than an inability to get it done thing. Does that make sense? Right? So the first question is, have you done what you said you were going to do? Okay. Does that means, have you done the phone calls? I know there's a couple of you that told me you were going to make phone calls this week. A couple of you told me when and where you were going to make the phone calls this week. Again, I've got all that written down. This is a question I'm going to ask you to email me the answer. For those of you that said that you would send an email to your customers, have you done that yet? Right? And if the answer is no, what are you going to do about it? Okay. If the answer is yes, the next question, by the way, that was the question. If the answer is no, what are you going to do about it? If the answer is yes, you've already done that. The next question is, have you done your best work? Right? Would you take whatever you did this week and go to Kate Vassy or go to Earl Kelly and say, this is every single thing I was capable of? Not obviously for the students. We're not asking you to skip your classes and drop out of school. That's not what we're looking for. But in addition to all of the other stuff, would you say this was my best? And one thing you got to learn, so many people focus on what we call spinning one plate, right? If you ever see the circus performers where they have a stick and a plate on it, right? They have to work really hard to spin the plate. And I've seen so many people where they get one plate spinning and like, I got it, it's spinning. But guess what? It only takes a certain amount of effort to get a plate spinning. And then once it's spinning, momentum takes over. And you don't need to sit there and keep wiggling and jiggling the thing. You can just tap it and it'll keep going, right? So the circus performers, what they'll do is they get a second plate, right? And they get that one spinning. And once it's spinning, they go back, they give the first one a little momentum, they got the second one going, and then they get a third one spinning. Now, you guys have had plenty of time at this point to get your school plate spinning. So at this point, if you're not used to your school schedule, if you're not used to when you need to be in class and when you need to be doing homework, that might be an issue, right? At this point, you should be looking at, all right, I've got the school thing under control. I need to get the next thing going, right? And if all of your time that's not being spent in school, by the way, for those of you that are D1 athletes, I get that that's another plate you got to spin, right? But for some of you guys, you're doing the school thing really well. You're showing up to Leadership Academy, which is part of it. But if all of the rest of your time is hanging out with your friends and watching Netflix and playing video games, again, that's a time management issue, not an inability to get it done issue. You guys tracking with me, right? So my last question I want you guys to write down an answer to is, what are you going to do this week to move the needle forward? For some of you guys, by the way, like it literally should be tonight after Leadership Academy ends, or tomorrow morning before and or after your first class of the day, because we only have 7 days left. I also want to remind you why it's so important that you get some momentum for this push. Number one, you're playing for a team. And just like a sports team, we need every player contributing. There are no bench warmers. All right, you're either on the team or you're off the team, but there's no bench warmers in Vector. Number two, I'll tell you flat out, the push prizes, the trophies, the awards, those are great. And they can definitely motivate you. I know at times in my career, I've been more motivated by prizes and awards than I have been by money, right? So if the prizes and the awards get you, I'll just tell you now, by the way, that Champions polo that you get, I forget what you have to sell for it, but I've got one. It's very sexy. I'm just saying, I forget how much you have to sell for it. I don't even know. All right, but if prizes and awards do it for you, great. For some of you guys, you need the money, okay? And I know for a couple of you, you're fat and happy with your money right now. But I just want to remind you that we just had a checkpoint 2 weeks ago of $100 minimum for your Leadership Academy savings. The next checkpoint is in 3 weeks, and you need to be at a minimum of $250, recommended $500. After that, when we get to Olean, and by the way, you guys may want to write this down because I don't know how much you've heard about it or not. But when we get to Olean, number one, you're going to be giving your report in front of the rest of the DC Metro division, all of the other division managers, and Earl Kelly, and the CEO of the company, Al DiLeonardo, and the owner of Cutco Corporation, Jim Stitt. Just putting it out there, right? You got a nice audience of people that you want to impress, and they'll be evaluating all of the candidates. But the minimum checkpoint by Olean is to be at $500 in savings. But if you're at 1,000, you will get a special letter recognizing you to be on track to be a branch or a district manager, or to have your choice of which of the 4 paths you would want. And you also get a picture with the executives that becomes a really nice trophy and something to hang in your office wall right next to your diploma or degree. Does that make sense? Right. So you want that. And for some of you guys, you're like, oh, I'm paying my bills. I'm not hurting for food. I can go out with my friends. But you might need to be thinking about the savings targets, right? Not just the spending targets, you know? And then the last thing, and in my opinion, I would say this is the most important one. I would say this trumps the team. I would say this trumps the prizes and awards. I would say this rivals the savings and the being on track, is that the way that you push for SLC is the way that your team is going to push for the SEC push next summer. Okay, especially if you're a branch or a district manager, you're going to open up your office in the second week of May. The third week of May is when you're going to have your first training class ever, and that's when the SEC push starts. And your college students are going to be just getting out of school. They're going to be interviewing at multiple jobs. And so most of your students are going to be very part-time. And you're also going to have high school students who are actively in school getting ready for graduation. And the way that you approach your school schedule right now is the way that you're going to help your high school students approach their school schedule next summer, right? So if you're in the boat, we're like, oh man, I'm super busy, I'll sell later. That's what your kids are going to do too. Does that make sense? And then if you are an assistant manager, this is going to still apply because you're going to be leading a branch or a district team by example. And you guys understand, right? The assistant managers can't lead from the back like, oh, you guys sell. I can't. I can't sell, but you should definitely sell. That doesn't work, right? The assistant managers need to be attacking it. So this impacts how your SEC push is going to go next summer. And again, in my opinion, I would say it matters. Right? And again, I just want to be clear. I ain't mad at any of you. And I understand that all of you guys have a different attack plan, right? But I just want to remind you that we're now halfway through the push. I know where the results are so far. And I want to make sure that we're not just accepting what it is, but instead focusing on, all right, what are we going to do different? So I'm going to ask you, please, you can take a minute. I'll take like 30 seconds. If you want to text it to me, if you want to email it to me, you can, by the way, you're invited after Leadership Academy to just call me and we can talk live after Leadership Academy is over. But again, I want to know what you've done so far and what you're looking at coming up. Give you guys 10 more seconds. Hey, Madison, welcome back. So weird. You guys all like closed your cameras so you could, I assume, email me. It's just weird. Like all of your cameras disappeared one by one. Now Madison's back. Looking forward to seeing the rest of your beautiful faces again. All right, beautiful. Let's go ahead and jump back in here. So I'm going to get my slides up on the screen. All right, wonderful. So I just want to share with you guys. And first off, I want to welcome all of the new people. I know we just added Brandon to the mix. Charlie, we finally got engaged. So I just want to share with you guys, and some of you heard this already, but I really do think it's worth rehearing, and especially for the new guys. Number one, why it's worth it. Okay, so I was looking up some old, not really old, like from the summer pictures. And this is one of the first ones I came up with. Kayla, you should recognize that. She's over here kind of making the dog face at me. But this is Kayla's office, and I absolutely loved it. Because you walk in and this was where she was running her interviews and all of her training. Madison and Carissa, you guys probably recognize that room right there. One of the coolest things about being in leadership and Vector, it is cool when you sell a homemaker set. It is cool when you win a trophy, but there is nothing like when you help someone else do it. So for me, this is me getting to celebrate Kayla's win, but also she got to celebrate one of her people's wins. right? And Kayla, I'm sure that you can vouch for that, that when your people win, it is so much more fulfilling than even when you win. By the way, this is a cool one. Will, you're in this one. Bryce, let me take that picture. I thought that was the coolest freaking thing, right? Which you get someone to win a #1 trophy. So cool. And then at the end of summer, when you've got your team and your squad, right? That's what we're building towards. And I just want to remind you guys that as you go through Leadership Academy, it can lead to 4 paths. One of them is that next summer, you're a branch or a district manager running your own show, right? A branch is a college student doing it just for the summer, like Kayla and Bryce did, and a district is someone like me doing it as a year-round thing post-college. The second path is that you could be an assistant manager, which means that you're working in a branch or a district, assisting with the field operations there and getting the double pay, both off what you personally sell and off what the office sells, and getting some real life leadership experience. The third path is that you could be in sales, either operating as a high level sales rep, potentially a field sales leader or a field sales manager, joining the events team and making maximizing your commission there. And then the fourth path is that you can leave Vector and be better trained and better equipped to do something else awesome outside Vector. And what we're building here, right, this is the vision I have for my specific team here. There's openings across the board. And next year, when we take in my office as the pilot, plus the new district managers and the new branch managers that we promote, we're looking to build a $1.5 to a $2 million year next year. So I just want to remind you guys of what I'm looking for in the Leadership Academy. Right, and especially for those of you who are just getting started with us, this is important. And for those of you who have been with us for a couple of weeks, this is a good reminder. Number one, I do ask you to be on time, and my preference is that on time is about 5 to 10 minutes early, so that we actually start on time. If everyone's logging in at 7:30, and for those of you, by the way, who are on a couple minutes early, or Kevin and Tiffany got here I think Kevin, you were like 20 minutes early. Tiffany, I know you came in early and we're doing some work, but I really appreciate that. But I do ask you at least 5 to 10 minutes early so that we start on time, right? I do ask, especially for those of you that are teleconferencing, make sure that you're in a quiet place where you've got stable internet and you can be focused. And I do ask you to dress decent, and I said this at the beginning, and just a reminder, last year when I ran Leadership Academy, I required everybody to dress in full professional clothes, shirt and tie for the men, similar for the ladies, regardless, right? Whether you're away at college or even if you didn't work at all for the day and you were coming in, like Leadership Academy was professional dress. And I've loosened up the standard on that. I allow you to dress a little more comfortably, but I have noticed a tendency for people, some of the people coming in dressing in t-shirts or sweatpants, some of the people on teleconference literally laying in bed. And that's not what I'm looking for, right? You're not going to do your best work if you're acting and dressing like you're about to fall asleep or roll out of bed, right? So I am going to ask you guys, I don't need you to put on a full suit. Gentlemen, I don't need a tie, but I am going to ask you to dress in a way that's going to put you in the mindset of doing your best work, right? That's what I'm looking for. And then number 3, the final thing is just make sure you're practicing what you're learning. Tonight is going to be the final night that we're going to be talking about the interview. But next month on October 13th, you're going to be performing the interview in front of Kate Vassie and all of the other manager candidates and leadership candidates in the entire DC Metro Division. So if we get to October 13th and the last time you looked at the interview was September 24th, you're going to be in for a little hurting. Does that make sense? Right. So just make sure you're practicing this stuff out loud. Someone told me last week, and I forget, I would love to give someone a shout out, but honestly, I forget and I apologize. But someone told me that they literally set up a bunch of teddy bears in their dorm room and were like interviewing the teddy bears. Kevin told me he sat down with his friend, one of your friends,
Yeah.
Right? And he was interviewing his friend, right? I love that. Just make sure you're getting some practice and repetition in so that you actually get the skill. The value of leadership. We'll teach you stuff in here, but the value that you're going to get is from the practice, right? So anyway, those are my opening thoughts for you guys. There's 2 things I have on the agenda for tonight, and I am really excited. This is going to be a fun one. Number 1, as promised, we're going to get into our first part of a 3-part series on money, right? Earning, and the goal is to become wealthy and build wealth and riches, not because money buys happiness, but because money buys freedom, right? So we're going to start there. And then at the end, I'll teach you guys how to give someone the job. I'll also teach you how to not give someone the job. Some of you guys seem like you're really interested in that aspect because you're all sadists. But we'll talk about that and we'll practice it a little bit, and that will almost definitely fill up our hour. But I am going to ask, please, some of you guys, I'm sure already have this, but make sure you've got something you can take some notes with, because I want to start on the money series. And if you've looked at the syllabus, which by the way, I adjusted mildly, very mild adjustment, but I sent out an updated copy earlier today to your email. But today's going to be focused on earning and storing. Earning and storing. And the first thing I want to share is it's not about how much you earn, it's about what you do with it. Right? If you think about it, how many celebrities have gone completely broke? Right? How many stars have made literally millions of dollars and now they've got nothing? I know you guys are younger than me, I get it. But for me, the first one that comes to my mind is Nicolas Cage. Right? That dude was like the dude, and now he's completely bankrupt. Right? Another one that you guys have probably heard of is like MC Hammer. That dude made freaking millions. And within 3 years, he was being chased down by collections agencies and bankrupt. I know there's many more that are more relevant to your age group. I just don't know them because I'm an old ass man and I show it occasionally. Right? The other thing, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar, how many lottery winners win millions and just go broke? Right? I've seen Cutco people do the same thing. In fact, a lot of times our top sales reps, our best sales reps, end up broker than our mediocre sales reps, for the simple fact that they made so much money in such a short period of time that they blow it all thinking like, oh yeah, it'll just come back next week. And then they blow through it and they lose their selling momentum because they're like, oh, I've got enough money, I'm good. And they are good until they're not good, right? But if they don't have money continuing to come in, it will run out eventually, right? In fact, 2 summers ago, my number one sales rep made $15,000 in 2 months. And then was telling me 1 month into school, we got to about the second week of October, he started talking about the next savings target for Leadership Academy. And he was literally telling me, I'm flat broke, I have no money. I was like, how's that possible? And you can probably imagine, by the way, you guys probably understand, I asked him like literally, how is it possible that you're broke? And you can probably guess, what was his answer?
Spent it. Yeah, spent it in the car.
No, the answer was, I don't know.
Oh, no.
The answer was, I don't know. I don't know where the money went. It just went. What does that tell you? That he had a bunch of money, got so focused on getting rid of it, right? And so many people, that is human, by the way. We get it, and we just want to get rid of it for flash, right? All flash, no cash. And then we went back into his bank statements. We looked at his credit cards, and turned out he had bought, oh, I won't tell you because it's embarrassing, but spent it all. I know that, right? It happens all the time. So here's the deal. If you spend everything that you make, you will end up in debt. That's it, right? If you spend everything you make, I don't care how much you make, you will end up in debt. In fact, there's a funny show on TV. It's a British show, so you guys you either will love it or hate it because it's British humor, but it's literally people repoing private jets, right? The whole show is like people that bought these multi-million-dollar jets and then they get repoed because they can't make the payments. All flash, no cash, to the extreme, right? So I'm going to go back to my earlier statement. Money doesn't buy happiness, it buys freedom. And freedom is a process, okay? You can make a lot of money in an event, but an event is a one-time deal. A process is something that's recurring and ongoing, okay? And I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I've asked this question to you before. Almost every single one of you will recognize it. Do you believe it's possible to get rich quick?
Depends what vehicle you're in.
No or yes?
Yeah.
No way.
I'm going to say yes. In fact, I'll prove it to you. Just recently, the guy who created Spotify sold Spotify for $29 billion. Is he poor or is he rich?
Rich.
He's rich. By the way, did he have to work a 40-hour week to get a $29 billion paycheck?
No.
Really, what was the event? The event was someone signed a contract and then he had $29 billion coming to him. Does that make sense? Does it matter how many hours he worked? Not at all. Do you guys get this? So one event, one contract, one yes, $29 billion in the bank. Okay. Another one, PayPal. Okay. My man, Elon Musk, right, created PayPal. PayPal was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion. Okay. Now, Elon wasn't alone in PayPal. He had to split that money 3 ways, which means they all received approximately $500 million, 500 million. So all 3 of them got rich, right? Did it happen slow or did it happen quick?
Quick and then
Okay. Mark Zuckerberg, one dude, he took Facebook public years ago, and it was a $90 billion day is what he made. He made 90 billion in one day. Did he get rich slow or get rich quick? All right. By the way, how old are these guys? Spotify, I don't know, right? That CEO is not a very public figure. Elon Musk, though, right? He was in his late 20s, early 30s when he became a $500 million in a moment. Mark Zuckerberg was what, 32, 33? When he became literally a multi-billionaire. Even MySpace, I don't know if you guys know of MySpace or you've heard of it. It was really crappy. I'm glad it's gone. It was sold for $580 million. And the dude that sold it was, I could be wrong, but I think he was 29. He wasn't even 30 yet. Did he get rich slow or get rich quick?
fast.
All right. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Is it possible to get rich quick? All right. I think the evidence says yes. Here's the difference, though. And the reason that you feel compelled to say no is you mix up get rich quick with get rich easy. Okay. I'm a believer that get rich easy doesn't exist. Get rich easy is a gimmick. It's a way that people try to get you, but it doesn't work. But that doesn't mean that get rich fast is a sham, right? The key is that you need to have processes in place that create an event. Okay, if you look back at the Spotify story, going from the startup phase all the way through to getting this $29 billion payout. If you look at PayPal and all the things they had to do to create this $1.5 billion payout. If you look at Mark Zuckerberg and all the things he had to do to get his $90 billion payout, the processes are what create successes, right? It's the process. By the way, if you look at pop music, right? A lot of these pop artists, they come on the scene, they have one hit, they make a crap ton of money, they blow it because there's no process, and they never have a second hit. I'm sure you guys are aware of that, right? So it is entirely possible to have an event without a process, but if you don't have a process, the success is unsustainable. It will go away. You guys tracking with me so far? Okay. So let me give you a couple simple steps. Oh, actually, getting ahead of myself here. Part of earning is creating a recurring revenue where you're not working. Okay, it's almost a cliche at this point. I'm sure some of you guys have heard this, but you have to get to a point where you can separate your time from your money. Right? If you work an hourly job, I don't care how many dollars you get paid per hour. If you work an hourly job, you literally have to trade your time for money. If you make $100 an hour, you have to give an hour of your time to make $100. Granted, that is better than giving up an hour of your time for $8 or $9, but it's still trading time for money. The only way to become wealthy, truly wealthy, is to separate your time from your money and create a system where you can earn money even when you're not working. Okay? As a sales rep, you can do this. It takes about 300 customers. Okay, that's why so many of our reps love joining the events team. Once you have about 300 customers, we have some marketing systems, some marketing processes that you can take advantage of that'll market to your customers even if you're not calling and texting and emailing. Okay, in fact, the first time I ever did this, I hit the 300 mark, I signed up for the marketing, I had $10,000 in sales in 3 weeks from an email that I never even saw or looked at or read. Okay. But it takes about 300 customers with the conversion ratios. So one of the things that you're doing now is earning your way to that point, right? Branches get a taste of this because sales happen when you're not working. Actually, Kayla, speak loud so these guys can hear you. But how many times this summer did you, where you were doing something completely unrelated to working, and then you checked your voicemails and someone was like, oh, I sold a set, right? Or you just look on Vector Connect and you're like, oh, we just sold a couple grand. I just made a couple $100. Right? And it's freaking cool. I did this the other day. I was literally, no exaggeration, I told you guys I got a injury. By the way, this injury is not healing well, just FYI. It's now a neck injury instead of just a rib injury, just FYI for those of you who have been curious. Either way, I was at the doctor trying to get fixed up, and it wasn't working is really what it came down to. But I left the doctor, I looked on Vector Connect, and I was like, oh, we sold a couple $1,000s. At least I made money while I was in suffering, right? And then I went and I got a massage, and it was a sports massage. It was the worst massage I've ever had because it hurt. But I got that. I spent $90 on it, and then I checked Vector Connect leaving, and I made 250. And I was like, oh, that's cool, right? So branches get a taste. Districts get a really good taste because we also get e-commerce, PACE, monthly bonus, car bonus. There's more stuff. But the cool thing is, even at the age of 18, 19, 20, you can get a taste of what it's like to make money without actually working, which is pretty cool. But anyway, sorry, I just got excited. Where was I in my notes? This is why I take notes, by the way. Here we are. Last thing. In terms of the process, step one is earn as much as possible. You're not just selling Cutco. You are building a book of business that has long-term residual value. And money buys freedom. So if you're getting paid $8 an hour or $100 an hour, they'll both get you to the same end result, but the second one gets you there faster. The irony, by the way, is that to be able to separate your time from your money, you have to do a lot of work unpaid, right? Or underpaid to get to the point where you are overpaid, right? My coach, Grant Cardone, says that in life, you're never paid what you're worth. You're underpaid until you're overpaid, right? In fact, I'll just tell you this quick aside, but related. One of my buddies from the 10X conference I went to this year posted something on his Instagram page, and it said, would you work without pay for 7 years, unpaid, if on day one of the 8th year, you receive $10 million all at once? And it's funny because there were a bunch of people that were like, oh no, that's not worth it. It's too much. I need more money. Well, guess what? We'll talk about investing next time. That's a lie. 2 times from now, we'll talk about investing. But it takes about $5 to $7 million invested to be able to make enough money that you live on the interest and never touch the principal. Does that make sense? It takes about 5 to 7 million. So my thought, I looked at that. I was like, I work for 7 years. I make 10 million. I can retire, right? If I'm 30 something right now, you guys are 20 something right now for the most part. You work for 8 years and then you're retired. And if the average life expectancy in America is 70, 75 years old, how many more years do you have to live your life? Does that make sense? I was like, I would make that trade 100%. I would trade 7 years of sacrifice to get 40 years of doing what I do. You guys tracking with me? Your answer might not be yes, it is what it is, but that's how I'm looking at this stuff, right? So anyway, step one is earn. Step two is very simply, don't spend every dollar that you make. That's it. Just don't spend every dollar that you make. You've heard Colin James talk about passive and active saving. I absolutely love that concept. Active is when you physically show up at a Leadership Academy prep with a check or a money order. Passive is when you just have a percentage of your paycheck go directly to savings. I do both. I love both. Your startup, by the way, is the biggest part of your saving, because what you're doing is you're investing in the ability to make more. Okay, so right now, if you take all the hours that you work, how much you make, you figure out how much you're making per hour. You invest it in Leadership Academy and being an assistant or a branch or a district, and that number gets bigger. You guys tracking with me? All right. We'll talk about that more next week. And then the last one is very simply have a budget. You need to have a budget. As you go through the Leadership Academy, Kate will be teaching a lot of the Dave Ramsey stuff. By the way, I should ask actually at the last prep, did he talk about budgeting at all? Okay, that'll probably be the October one. But have a budget. Very simply, decide where your money's going to go before you have it. That's it. Freaking Kevin's over here like preach. Just decide where it's going to go before you have it. Okay. By the way, I'll just tell you guys, I put myself on a salary. Okay. By the way, I'll just tell you for fun, my salary that I pay myself is significantly lower than what Vector Marketing pays me. My salary is less than $40,000 a year. But that's not Vector telling me. That's John Godwin saying John Godwin's salary is less than 40 grand a year. And what I do is I worked out with my wife, we figured out exactly how much money we need to live and to live a happy life. Don't get me wrong. We can go to the movies, we can go to dinner, but we're not blowing money out the wazoo. And I put from my Vector business a certain amount of money in our joint checking account every month. She does the same from her business. And then for both of us, we've already decided. I have a sheet of paper. That's a lie. It's an Excel spreadsheet, but it's the same thing. And it says on there, we're going to put this much money into this savings account, this much money into this savings account. I'll just tell you, for a while, we had a baby fund, and we decided we weren't even going to try to have a baby until we had $10,000 in cash in the baby fund. And so we were putting money in there consistently until it hit 10 grand, and then we stopped. Then we started a Tesla fund, right? Kept that fund going until we had 60 grand in there, and then I bought a Tesla with cash. By the way, I get it back in a couple of days. Mondo excited. And then Tiffany and I were playing with the app earlier. It's fun. More fun for me. I get that, but still. Anyway, but we had the money going into the Tesla fund until the Tesla was funded. And now we're working on something new, right? And we just have it set up so that we'll pay ourselves this certain amount. And then anything over that, I don't want to like overcomplicate it with my own personal details because I realize my priorities in spending are very different from yours. But I would say this percentage will go to this. This percentage goes to this. This percentage goes to this. For me, we're funding babies and cars and like old people stuff. For you guys, I'd be funding an emergency fund, your startup, whatever your next like big like tuition payment, or if you know you need a car soon, whatever, right? But I'd be putting money towards those things now with the simple concept of earn your money, earn a lot of money, earn as much money as possible, but try to live on 70%. I try to live on 70% and try to get 30% that you store. And where you store it doesn't need to earn interest. Where you store it isn't a mutual fund or a retirement fund where you can't get the money. You're storing it somewhere liquid, like a very basic checking account or startup or something like that. You're storing it with the full intention of getting to a certain amount and then making an investment. You're not trying to invest pennies. You store pennies until you can invest dollars. Let me pause for a second because I know that's a lot and I know that was like super intense, but I'm passionate about this stuff. Is this resonating for you guys? Mm-hmm. A little different from what your parents and your teachers teach you, huh? Mm-hmm. Nice. I love this stuff. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. Cool. Next week, by the way, we're going to talk about where to put the money that you're storing and how to grow it. And I'm going to share a secret with you that you will never hear from your parents, I promise. But let's switch gears for right now. And I want to use the remainder of our time to talk about the interview. So if you guys would pull out or pull up your interview scripts. Keep your notes handy, by the way, because I want to talk about some of our philosophies and then we'll do some practicing together. So we talked 2 weeks ago about the pre-screening. We practiced that. Last week, we did the full group interview with the exception of actually watching the video, but we did the stuff before the video. We did the stuff after the video, right? So today, what's left is to talk about what happens after the group is over, which is when you start pulling people back into your private office to tell them if they got the job or not, right? as far as the music and mechanics of this, you want to have people spread around the room. You don't want everyone kind of bunched up sitting together. You want the music on and playing, and you're coming out and you decide who you meet with in what order. Okay. There is no right or wrong answer per se, but I'll just tell you now. What I like to do is I go hide in my private office unless there's someone that I really don't like and I just want them out of my office. If there's someone I really want out of my office, I'm like, hey, don't even finish, just come back. But that's rare, right? Usually I'll give them about 3 to 5 minutes because what they're working on, and if you guys have the I forget what it's called, the document, but it's like the quiz sheet or the post-interview assessment quiz. It's something like that. The front side has questions for them to answer. I care almost zero about their answers to those questions. Almost zero. Not quite zero, but very close. What I care about the most is on the back. Okay, on the back, or if you've got the PDF document, it's the second page, but we print them front to back. And the back is PRs. Okay, and it's just like when you're collecting referrals from your customer, if you made a big sale, but you didn't get referrals, it's a dead end. Or if you had a no sale, but you got a lot of referrals, it's a really good, profitable appointment. Same thing goes with PRs. It's the same deal. So I want to maximize my PR collection. You guys get that? So I wait about 3 to 5 minutes unless there's someone I really just want out of my office, which is rare. And then what I like to do, and again, this isn't a right or a wrong answer, but my philosophy on this is I bring back my 1 or 2 worst people first. My 1 or 2 worst ones first. And here's why. I'm not going to take a lot of time with those people. It'll go fast. Mm-hmm. And then when 1 or 2 people leave the office quickly, that kind of sends a signal to everybody else who's waiting, like, oh, this is fast, no big deal. And they're not as antsy to leave, right? Versus if you're taking your best person and you actually get into a conversation and you're talking and connecting, and then everybody's like, oh man, every one of these takes that long, screw it. Does that make sense? All right, so I get my 1 or 2 worst ones first. After that, then I get my best ones, right? My absolute favorites. The ones that, man, if I have 10 people in the interview, but if I got this 1 or these 2 people, I won the day. Most of you guys were those people, right? Then I get them because I want to make sure I get them. And then I'll get everybody else. Okay, so my 1 or 2 worst ones, my 1 or 2 best ones, and then everybody else in no specific order. And you guys get that, right? Now, our philosophy behind who gets the job and who doesn't is that we are recruiters. And I know there's been some misconceptions where some of you guys are like, oh, everybody gets the job. And last week I was like, that's not quite accurate, but there is a method to the madness. Okay, number 1, from a pure not caring about the people involved, just from a pure dollars and cents standpoint, most companies spend all of their money after they hire someone. Okay, I worked for a company when I left Vector for a couple years that did staffing, and I would literally charge businesses, specifically the HR person, I would charge businesses between $10,000 to $20,000 to hire someone for them, but they only paid me if they took my person. Right, so they spent 0, 0, 0, 0. They picked my person. They better make damn sure it was the person they wanted, right? I also applied. I didn't take the job or work the job, but I applied at an insurance company. And the guy who offered me the job literally told me, he said, look, if you're not going to work here, if you're not going to take the job and commit for 2 years and be serious about this, don't come to training. Because he said, if you show up to training, I spend $150. He said, so if you're not going to be here for 2 years, don't come. I didn't go. Does that make sense? But most companies spend their money after they make the hire. For us, well, we spend all of our money before we make the hire. Okay. And the money primarily is spent on advertising. We'll send out letters in the mail. I spent personally about $37,000 on letters in the mail this summer, but they were spent regardless of whether 0 people applied for the job or 37,000 people applied for the job. The money I spent was exactly the same. So my best chance of getting that money back is to get the people that apply in. Does that make sense? We also buy road signs and posters and business cards. We put out ads on Craigslist, ads on Monster, Hot Job, Snag a Job, Indeed, Employment Guide, a ton of websites, right? But the money gets spent to get people to apply for the job, but we spend the same amount regardless of whether we give everybody the job or nobody the job. You guys with me so far, right? I actually added it up. And when people show up to training, if they don't finish training, if for any reason they drop out, and I think at this point you guys all know that happens, right? If they don't finish training, how much does it cost to train them?
Time or whatever you
It
invested
does cost
for.
money.
Yeah, whatever you invested in advertising.
Well, no, on top of that. Ready? I'll tell you. It costs 58 cents.
Okay.
If someone shows up to training and drops out, it costs me 58 cents. Okay? If someone launches from training, so keep in mind, I'm now giving them a blue book, a price list, a training manual, all these things, right? Guess how much it costs me to actually get someone out the door?
0.
No, it costs money. $7.
Okay.
It cost me $7, right? Specifically for the supplies that I give them. You guys get that? So, by the way, the cost of having someone come into my office and I don't give them the job compared to giving them a job and they finish training, it only cost me $7 more. But if I don't give them the job, how much are they going to sell?
Nothing.
How much will I make on nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing, right? But if I give them the job, the average rep sells about $1,500 to $2,000. That's the mediocre reps. Well, guess how much you make on that? If you're an assistant manager, it's somewhere between 0.5% to 2% based on your role and a couple other things. But if you're a branch or a district, you make 25% of that. You make about $300-400 on a mediocre rep. Does that make sense? Right? So again, just disregarding the people and the human lives and all the things, just dollars and cents. It's a lot more profitable to give someone a chance and let them at least be mediocre. With me so far, yeah? The second thing is that you never know who's going to be great. If you look at any of us, you guys, myself included, I would have never expected I'd be good at selling knives. I would have never thought this would be a thing that I'm doing. Does that make sense? Right? You guys included, I'm sure that you look and you're like, yeah, I would have never thought of myself as a salesperson or doing that well or whatever. But look at you now. And then I'll just share with you. I've had people, don't play, good. I've had people on my team with Down syndrome who have done really well, like 20, 30 plus $1,000 in sales well. We had a girl who was blind, could not see, who sold over $500,000 and ran a branch office. Okay. We had a guy who was in a wheelchair who ended up becoming a district manager. And he was crippled, like from the shoulders down, like couldn't use his hands or his legs, ran a district office and did really well. Okay. I'm going to show you a video. This is Kip Mangira. He's got one of the coolest videos of all time that I want to show you.
8 or 9 surgeries over the years. We've got osteogenesis imperfecta, which means that my bones just aren't as strong as the average person's, and I break a lot. So when I was born, I came out like a bag of chips, popping. I don't look at it as anything to think about or feel bad about. You can't change it. You just gotta keep going. I had pursued some jobs, but the problem with me is that the wheelchair is so large and obnoxious and I can't get the wheelchair anywhere unless I do ride it around, because the vehicle that we have is not equipped to take this wheelchair. So any other job that I would have, I would need to find a job that would let me off on the days that it would rain, because obviously I can't show up to work soaking wet. 15,167 and have baby! Cutco or Vector. Was pretty surprised when I got that phone call. on Sunday afternoon. I was eating dinner with my family. And they said that we have to go to different people's homes. I was kind of worried about how I would get inside the homes at first. But just do what I always do. I just crawled at every appointment. I just like the fact that I can make my own schedule, flexibility. I still get to ride the wheelchair around all the time. My favorite hobby, and the opportunities to advance later on and graduate debt-free, which wasn't in my like path when I first started. But then I started to see, wow, it's a great opportunity here. A lot of people don't get this opportunity, and I don't know why. It just fell right in my lap. 2 months, I've earned enough money for the first semester of school and some extra to put down on a new car too. People don't realize how good they have it here. My family is in overseas in Africa right now, cooking dinner on camping style coals in the backyard. We take a lot for granted. If the people in Kenya can wake up every morning and get things done, there's no reason why anyone here shouldn't be able to.
Isn't that wild? By the way, just FYI, that video was recorded at the end of his first summer selling Cutco, when he had just had a $12,000 SC2 push and then a $10,000 COC push. And he was going into his freshman year of college. At this point, he's now done with college. He's a career sales professional, a CSP. But he did the full Cutco through college thing that we always talk about, where he was a sales rep, an assistant manager. He was a branch manager. And then he graduated. He looked at other companies. He looked at district, looked at CSP, and decided that he liked the CSP opportunity. And he's now in the Hall of Fame, well over $1 million in sales. And how many other companies lost out on that dude because of the wheelchair? Right. So when I talk about in my training and my interview, you never know who's going to get a life-changing phone call. That S is for real, you know? That said, not everybody gets the job. And there are 3 reasons that I would say not to accept somebody, okay? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want you to at least be equipped and familiar. Number 1 is if they're going to make other people uncomfortable or push other people away. And I'll tell you very openly and transparently, I feel uncomfortable even saying this. And it sounds terrible, I know, but it's the truth. I had an interview relatively recently where I had a whole group of like private school white kids who were really preppy and raised in like the rich neighborhood. And then there was one dude, he wasn't a bad guy all by himself, but he came in with really long dreadlocks. He looked kind of sloppy. And he had tattoos all up and down his arms and his neck. Did any of those things make him a bad person? Absolutely not. Are any one of those things not a reason to not give him the job? I would say no. But you have to realize you put a bunch of preppy, spoiled rich kids in a room with this one guy, who's more likely to be uncomfortable by the other, right? Don't answer the question. But I didn't have him stay for the interview, not because he wasn't a good human, but I would have to sacrifice the 7 to get the 1. Does that make sense? So because he was going to make other people uncomfortable, I had him leave. Earlier today, there was a guy who came in the interview, and I'll be honest, I didn't like him. Like he walks in, he was barely on time. I commented on that. And as soon as I commented on it, he started making excuses, which you guys know me, I hate that. And then he was like super loud and super obnoxious. And I was like, this guy, as a human, isn't not good enough to work here. But if he's being like loud and obnoxious and not really portraying the energy that I want, he could make the other people in the office uncomfortable enough to not work here. And so I came close to sacrificing the one. There was a reason I didn't. I'll tell you about that at the end. Does this make sense though? All right. So sometimes you get rid of the one person to protect the group, just like you would throw away an apple that's starting to go bad before it makes the other apples go bad. Number two is if someone is physically uncomfortable. I don't have a dress code per se, but if someone walks in the office looking like they're not here to interview, I don't necessarily have them stay, right? I had one interview, again, this is related, but slightly different, where I had a handful of people in the office wearing full suits. They came with notebooks and resumes. And this one kid rolls in wearing shorts, a t-shirt. What are those shoes? The boating shoes, those shoes. Sperry's, yep. And he just looked like a total slob. Again, was he bad enough by himself? No, but I was like, get him out of here because he's not prepared for the interview. I've had other people come in. And again, I don't think piercings and tattoos are terrible, but I had one guy come in with tattoos all over his face. And I was like, this is uncomfortable, right? I'm uncomfortable with you. And I think that anybody outside your immediate family would be. So, I've had people, here's a fun one, physically uncomfortable. I've had people come in my office smelling like weed. Don't make my office smell like weed. I can tell you some funny stories about people who came to my office smelling like weed and the hilarious ways we got them to leave the office. There's some good stories. I'll tell you another time. But don't come to my office smelling like weed. That's a big one for me. And then if they just stinky, right? They haven't taken a shower for too many days or weeks or months. Physically uncomfortable, right? And then the last one, number 3, is serious issues. For example, I've had people come in to interview. They have a felony of theft. Well, I can't in good conscience send you to customers' houses with a knife kit if you steal from people's houses, right? I've had people come in for felonies for weapons charges or assault. I can't send you to someone's house with the sharpest knives in the world if you've got a history of assault or weapons issues. Does this make sense? Right? But I'll tell you, there are some felonies that I've forgiven. I remember one girl in particular came in, and I forget exactly what it was, but I remember her being like really upset, and she was like, I don't know if I can get a job or I want the job. And I asked her about the felony. She told me the deal, and I don't remember what it was. But when I thought about it, I was like, well, this doesn't really affect our business, and it could be an opportunity for you to get a fresh start. Does that make sense? So you really have to make the call. At the end of the day, if you're an assistant manager in an office, your district manager or branch manager will tell you the policies. If you're the branch manager or the district manager, you make the damn policy, right? You decide, which is pretty boss. But either way, there isn't a right or wrong, but those are the criteria that I use. For the most part, I will give most people the job. In my interview earlier today, by the way, 3 people showed up. One was a PR of a really good kid, and I wanted to get the PR. Second one was actually a really sharp girl who was also a PR and had been recommended by her career counselor at our high school, who I work directly with the high school, had recommended her. Really sharp girl. And then obnoxious bro. Okay. And of the 3, I was initially saying, I'm going to sacrifice obnoxious bro to protect the really sharp girl and the PR of one of my good kids, right? But then it turned out that the girl was too young to work here. Okay. Couldn't offer her the job even if I wanted. I had to excuse her. And then I was like, all right, well, I can either get obnoxious bro and good bro, or I can only get good bro. I was like, I don't think this guy's so bad that he's going to make this guy peace out. So I kept them both, ended up recruiting 2 people for the day. So sometimes it's a little fluid. Does that make sense? But anyway, if you're going to not accept somebody, I only have 3 rules, and this is important. Number 1 is leave them feeling good. What you won't hear me do is insult somebody or tell them they're not good enough or make them feel bad, because A, that's your reputation. You may have heard something along the lines before of what Susie says about Sally says more about Susie than it says about Sally. And if you leave someone feeling like you're a jerk and you're whatever, well, guess what? They're not going to work for you, but they are going to tell their friends about the experience. and there's ripples that go beyond that one person, right? Number two, the worst case scenario is that you don't want someone to cause a scene, right? You don't want someone causing a scene, especially if you're trying to run a group interview and there's like 5 or 6 people that you want to interview. You don't want one person to end the interview. The worst one that Kate ever had, she was actually running a training, and I don't know exactly what happened, but she kicked somebody out. This was when she was a new manager. She kicked somebody out. It didn't go as smoothly as it could have, and the person pulled the fire alarm, and the entire building was vacated, and she lost her entire training class. Guess who won that conversation? Right? So make sure people leave feeling good. Number two is give them a business card and a leaving piece. I showed you guys last week that little like booklet brochure. It's called the Skills for Life. Make sure every person who walks in your office gets that. And I recommend a business card. It's professional. I have actually literally walked outside before and seen people that I asked to leave the interview who throw my business card on the ground or whatever, but I just pick it up, right? I'm like, that says more about you than it says about me, right? And then number three is be real with them. I think Tiffany and Kevin and I were talking about this last week. There are some managers that don't tell people they didn't get the job. Right? They'll literally tell people like, oh yeah, we'll call you within 24 hours. And if we don't call you, keep looking for other jobs. I think that's sketchy, right? If you're going to give someone the job, wonderful. If you're not, don't lead them on. Don't lead them on. By the way, if there's someone that wants to go out with you, isn't it so much better for them just to, someone that you want to go out with, isn't it so much better for them just to tell you no, especially if they do it nicely, than to have them keep leading you on like, oh, call me next week, try again next week. And they lead you on, eventually you get pissed off anyway, right? So don't do that to people. Don't create that experience for people. So I just tell them they didn't get the job. I thank them for applying, wish them the best, shake their hand. And then they can move on to the next thing, and so can I. Does that make sense? All right, so 3 rules: leave them feeling good, give them the leaving piece on the way out in a business card, and then just be real and don't lead them on, making them think that they might get the job if there's 0 chance, yeah? That said, I wanna focus in the remainder of our time. I think we have about 20 minutes left, and I wanna practice the post-interview where you actually give somebody the job, okay? That is what you will do the majority of the time. And if you pull up the script, it's very, very simple, very, very straightforward. The first part gives them a chance to ask any questions that they have. You answer those. When we're over the winter break and a lot of you guys are home and running interviews in real life, I can run a whole workshop on how to answer questions in the interview, but that's not a pertinent one right now. But you answer their questions. One of the keys is you want to give them a sincere reason to give them the job. Okay, there is an attachment or a separate sheet in that document that basically has a list. Like if they're an athlete, tell them this. If they're an intelligent student, give them this. If they're shy and quiet, give them this. Those are great if you don't have a real reason to accept them. But in my opinion, if you've actually interviewed someone and were actually paying attention to what you were doing and you spent an hour with them, it says something about them or something about you if after an hour with the person, you need to give them a canned script on why they got the job. Does that make sense? I'll admit, by the way, occasionally it happens, but it's ultra, ultra rare. So I'd rather give them a genuine reason. As an example, obnoxious dude, when I gave him the job, and I did, obnoxious dude told me in the pre-screening how he has an 18-month-old daughter. He just got laid off from an electrical company he was working for. He's like, I'm not working right now. I'm looking for a job. I asked him what he wanted to do for the long term. And he was like, I don't care. I want to do whatever it takes to provide for my family. And I was like, this doesn't make you not obnoxious, but it does make you a pretty good dude. I didn't say that, obviously, but up here, it's exactly what was going through my head. You're still obnoxious, but you're a good dude. All right, so at the end of the interview, that's exactly what I told him. I never told him he was obnoxious, by the way, just FYI, telling you guys. But at the end of the interview, I said, hey, something you said at the beginning really resonated with me. You've got an 18-month-old daughter. You'll do anything to provide for her. I know in the past, you've done like manual labor and electrical work and hard stuff. I said, I know this is different for you, but I think that you'd be really committed to it to take care of your family, and I can train you. So you got the job. And even though that's not you guys, you feel how sincere that comes across, right? So you give them a real reason. And then the final part, it's in the script. You're literally going to read it. but you just set them up so they know when to come to training, where to go to training. If you're the trainer, wonderful. If you're not, build up the person who will be running the training. I'm pretty sure that my version of the script has you building up me, and that's for my staff, because I'm running almost all of the trainings this year. So I just put it scripted how to build me up, by the way, for those of you who have never seen this before. I realize the 3 of you who are physically here have, but if you've never seen this before, I don't have you build up me or whoever the trainer is to stroke my ego. It's to make them feel comfortable and confident, knowing that when they come into training, it's literally going to be meeting the person for the first time. So I have them like, hey, you're in good hands. You'll be taken care of. Does that make sense? And then you prep them on how to show up with names and numbers. And just FYI, when you practice this in front of other offices, if they're not doing the video demo and a 2-day training seminar, they don't have their people show up to training with names and numbers. But for the 2-day training and the video demo, which all of us are on, Brandon, you get to be inducted into the video demo club. You don't even know, but it's good. Everybody else is like, there's a not video demo. Anyway, neither here nor there. Just FYI, that is different from what the other offices do. It's a requirement for us because of the nature of our training being literally more than 50% shorter than their training. You're welcome for that, by the way, for when you run training. I almost went down a rabbit hole. I'll just tell you, the other offices spend 22 hours in training and we spend 10 to 12 tops. No, just FYI, your life will be better because you're on the video demo, but your peeps got to show up to training with names and numbers, so that script is there. Yeah? Beautiful. Here's what I'd like to do. We have now 17 minutes left. My fault. I want to have you guys practice this with each other. Nick, do you remember who you practiced with last week?
Not Nick.
I know you're not, and I realize that. I wish you would just answer the question. And
yeah, it was Becky. Yeah, Becky.
Becky. All right, beautiful. Do you have her number still?
I don't know. I think so. I do have it, but I don't know. I don't think I wrote it.
Okay. Becky, just like
Yeah.
last week. Oh, I just got a flurry of text messages. Oh, right, because I asked you guys to text me at the beginning. I forgot. That's now on the recording. You do have her number?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So Becky, I'm going to ask you, please hang up with me, and Kevin will call you for FaceTime. And then I'll have you guys practice back there, the post.
Okay.
Who did you practice with last week? Landon. Yes. Landon. Same thing. One of you, Landon, can you FaceTime Tiffany? Beautiful. I'll have you guys go back in the middle and do the thingy. And then are you able, Kayla? Ellison. You don't have your own Zoom account, do you?
I do, but I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I can just FaceTime all 2 things.
Yeah, can you do that? I was going to see if you can get Madison and Carissa. Beautiful. Madison and Carissa, both of you ladies can hang up with me, and Kayla will call you. One of you will be on her phone, one of you will be on her computer. So we'll do that. And then for Will and Brandon, yes. I'm going to have the 2 of you guys, very much like what we did last week. You'll practice it out loud, and I'll be here and I'll listen in to you.
All right.
Sounds great.
And do both of you guys have the script up?
I
Yes.
have it.
Wonderful. Mr. Brandon, when you're ready, could I ask you to go first?
Oh, okay.
Accidentally volunteered yourself?
All right. So, did we answer all your questions?
That's
Do you
you, Will, I would like you to be interviewed, please.
Okay.
And by the way, I'm going to mostly listen in with you guys, but I'm also going to walk around a bit just to eavesdrop, just so you're aware.
Okay. Wait. John, are we just doing the post interview, or are we doing the whole interview?
Do just the post.
Okay. All right. So, Will, did we answer all your questions?
Yes.
Do you have any other questions for me?
No, I don't.
All right. As I explained earlier, we're not able to accept everyone for the position, but there are some things that stood out to me after sitting down with you for about an hour. I'd like to offer you a position. Congratulations. Welcome to the team. I would like to review the training times with you, and I'm gonna go over the reminders. All right. Oh, well, I messed up. You'll be training directly with the owner, Mr. Godwin. He's been in the company for 13 years. He has sold over 200,000 in personal sales. He trained and has sold over 4 million. You'll be in great hands, and he'll take good care of you. The most important thing I want you to work on is I want you to make a list of people who you can do your first appointment with on the back of here in this room to make a list of people you can practice with. For the list, I don't care if you think they'll buy or not. If you think they'll be interested or not, the only I'm sorry, I have people in the back. The only thing I care about is that they're over 30 and married, and that you could practice with them. They can live anywhere, like right here in Maryland or in California or Florida. At the bare minimum, I need at least 10 people on your list. Now, the more the better. Most people do 20 or 30, but 10 is at least something to get you started. Last thing, don't try to get them interested in the project. If you go like, hey, you want to see some knives? That'll be really weird. Just get their numbers and training, and we'll teach you what to say that's professional and comfortable. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then what I would do is just shake their hand and smile as they leave.
Okay, here you go.
Adorable. Nice.
All right.
Before you go, either of you guys have any questions on that?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
Brandon?
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I just need to practice some more. But yeah, I got it.
Cool. Wonderful. So Mr. Buenas, whenever you're ready.
All right. So, Brandon, did we answer all of your questions?
Of course.
And do you have any other questions for me?
Nope.
All right. Well, as I explained earlier, we're not able to accept everyone for the position. But there are some things that stood out to me after sitting down with you. Now, you seem to pick up things quickly. I could tell during the interview that things just clicked. You're probably the type of person that you only need to learn something once, and you'll figure it out. I can tell that you would be successful because you invest the time and energy into learning every aspect of the job correctly. Your attention to detail and your capacity to learn will make you a top rep on our team. I'd like to offer you a position, so I'm going to say, congratulations, welcome to the team.
Oh, sweet.
So handle any conflicts in confirmed time. So you'll be training directly with the owner, Mr. Godwin. He's been with the company for 13 years and has sold over $200,000 worth personally. And the people he's trained have sold over $4 million. He'll be in really good hands and he'll take care of you. Now, the most important thing I want you to work on is I want you to make a list of people you can do your first appointments with. On the back here is room to make a list of people you can practice with. For this list, I don't care if you think they'd buy or not, or if you think they'd be interested or not. The only thing I care about is that they're over 30, married, and that you could practice with them. They can live anywhere, here in Maryland or even as far away as California or Florida. Now, at a bare minimum, I need you to get at least 10 people on the list. Now, the more the better, and most people do 20 to 30, but at least 10 is enough to get you started. And the last thing, don't try and get them interested in the product. If you go like, hey, want to see some knives and scissors? That would be really weird. Now, just get their numbers, and then training will teach you what to say, so it's professional and also comfortable. All right.
Nice. Mind if I do one?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, of course. You do this all the time.
Not wrong. So Will, I'm gonna post screen you, okay?
All right.
All right. So Will, come on back in my office. Did we answer all of your questions for today?
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm glad. And I can tell that you liked it. What specifically got you excited?
I really like that you can make your own hours.
Cool. Yeah, it is pretty flexible. Good. Well, I'll tell you, Will, obviously we have a lot of people applying and I can't work with everybody. But in your case, I did like a couple things about you. Number one, I know that you're an action taker. You just got the letter in the mail yesterday. You're in my office today. That tells me that you're the kind of person that likes to jump on things and take immediate action. And number two, I'm looking at your background in school. You've gotten good grades. I know you're very competitive on the soccer team. And I would imagine that makes you a team player and someone that would want to compete and perform in pretty much any area that you do. And we're building a competitive team. So obviously I can't work with everybody, but I'd like to offer you a position with us. Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way, when I say congratulations, I do shake their hand right there. I don't know if the script says that or not.
It does not. No.
So I shake their hand right there. Congratulations. I smile and I shake their hand. Beautiful. So let me go ahead and set you up for training. I'm going to give you this pamphlet first, and the pamphlet is the Skills for Life sheet. You guys know what that looks like, by the way?
I don't remember what it does.
Kind of like a little white envelope.
Yeah, hang on one second. I'm just going to grab one so I can actually show you. Just FYI, when you run your office, you get a lifetime supply of these, and they are free because we want to give one to every single applicant, so they never let you run out, which is great. I'm going to give you this guide. This pamphlet pretty much just has a summary of what I covered, and I'm going to set you up for training. Now, this is a document that I emailed to you, and you'll have this printed. This is the acceptance form. And on the back, it's got a spot to put their names and numbers for people. Brandon, I know Janessa didn't do this because she was on the 3-day training, but Will, this should look very familiar, right?
Yes.
So what I do is I sign it in front of them. And so I put my autograph on it. Doesn't need to be like that. My dad was a doctor, and the only thing I inherited was a signature. But I'll review the time. It's going to be printed on here and ready to rock and roll for you. You're training on Thursday and Friday from 2 to 7 both days. It's right in this office. When you come, just come on time, dress nice, bring a notebook, and bring lunch, and bring your phone with you. And then the most important part is on the back. I want you to make a list of people that you can do your first appointments with. Now, for this list, the only thing that I care about is that they're over 30 and married. I don't care if you think they would buy the product or even be interested. I just want you to have people you can practice on. And they can live anywhere. They can be here in Maryland, Florida, California. It doesn't matter. And is that where your script ends?
No. It goes at a bare minimum. I need you to get at least 10 people.
Okay, perfect. I was going to say that I didn't remember you guys saying that. And I was like, that's definitely the next thing I say. So at a bare minimum, I need you to at least get 10 people. If you can, fill up the page, the more the better. But again, don't try to get anyone interested in the product yet. You start calling people up now saying, hey, you want to do knives and scissors? That'll be weird, right? That'll be weird. Just get their name and number. In training, I'll teach you exactly what to say to them so it's comfortable and professional. Does that all sound good to you?
Yes, sir.
This is the part that was missing. I need to add this into the script, but here's my closing. So, Will, does that all sound good to you?
Yes.
Great. Well, hey, congratulations again. Welcome to the team. I will see you on Thursday. And if you notice, I stood up. So, Will, what did you feel compelled to do?
I had to stand up too.
Isn't that so weird? You're not even here.
It's like the vector nod.
Yes. That's what. So I'll need to go back and put that in the script. But that's what I do. After I set them all up with that, I say congratulations. I stand up and I shake their hand again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stand up, and it's easy to, like a magician, like exit stage left.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Wonderful. I knew. All right, got it. Okay, I know we've only got a couple minutes left. So, Brandon, can I have you go a second time?
Well, the place I'm at is about to kick me out. So do you mind if I hop off now? Hello.
Stay on until they actually kick you out. I'd like you to be interviewed by Will.
Okay.
And then Will, if he gets kicked out before 9 o'clock, you and I will just pick up where you guys leave off, but I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
All right. All right.
So Brandon, do we answer all of your questions?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you have any other questions for me in particular?
No, I do not.
Great. Now, as I explained earlier, we're not able to accept everyone for the position, but there are some things that stood out to me after sitting down with you. Now, like I see, you're a great student. You have great grades, and I think that you will fit in really well with the team here. And now I'd like to offer you a position. So congratulations and welcome to the team. So you'll be training directly with the owner, Mr. Godwin. And he's been with the company for 13 years and has sold over $200,000 personally. And the people he's trained have sold over $4 million. He'll be in really good hands and he'll take care of you. Now, for training, I need you to bring a notebook, dress nice, and bring lunch. Now, the most important thing I want you to work on is I want you to make a list of people you can do your first appointments with. On the back here is room to make a list of people you can practice with. For this list, I don't care if you think they'd buy or not, or if you think they'd be interested or not. The only thing I care about is that they're over 30, married, and that you could practice with them. They can live anywhere, here in Maryland or even as far away as California or Florida. Now, at a bare minimum, I need you to get at least 10 people on the list. Now, the more the better, and most people do 20 to 30, but at least 10 is enough to get you started. And the last thing is, don't try and get them interested in the product. If you go like, hey, want to see some knives and scissors? That would be really weird. Now, just get their numbers, and in training, we'll teach you what to say so it's professional and also comfortable. Now, thank you for coming, and I look forward to seeing you in training.
Wonderful. Love it. That sounded really good, especially for both of you guys seeing that for the first. Hi, Becky. I was kind of expecting Kevin to turn his computer around, then I realized you were on his phone, and I did not know you were looking at me. And, cool. As soon as Kayla comes out, I'm going to wrap up with you guys. Wonderful. Cool. Well, hey, guys, good timing. Good timing. It is 8:59 right now, and I want to honor the time we've set aside. I know we talked about a lot today, so number one, I want to thank you guys for your energy and your attention. I know that we've been always full time. We talked about a lot. We reviewed what we're building and where we're going. We talked about money. We got to talk about some fun stuff, and hopefully that was as enjoyable for you as it was for me. And then we got to learn the final part of the interview. So it's 9 o'clock. I am going to let you go. I know if you didn't set up a laser call with me yet, please text me. If you did, in the comments. If you have any questions about anything we talked about tonight, I'm available right now, or you can bring it up on the call. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys. Have a great night, and I will see you Monday.
All right. Have a great night.